All right, testing. I was kidding. Um, yeah, I'm gonna make a short video here. It's for some friends of mine that they got a Facebook website, Pearson Pickerel area or something. But I was on there chatting with somebody from about some UFOs, and anyway, I had posted on there about asking if anybody heard if there was a dog over there. If there was if they heard that about the UFO that crashed back in Pearson back in 1969, I think it was. But they wanted to hear the story. I did put it out there once on Facebook, just typed it out, but I'm gonna quick go through it. Everyone in Pearson knows me as the UFO nut. I'm the local Pearson UFO guy. And by the way, this is old amphitheater ruins, I guess. I don't know how old it is or anything. But anyway, I don't remember the details, but the week before, whatever, I was talking. Everywhere I go, I talk to a lot of people, and I talk about UFOs, chemtrails, whatever, just whatever comes to mind, whatever I feel, whatever I feel like. But talking about, but I was kind of pissed off because that week, every time I would talk about UFOs or aliens, you just get this deer in headlights stare from these people, and just, you know, you could just see that they had no belief in it whatsoever. They just, no, they do not believe in aliens. But anyway, I was pissed off, and I stopped down at our local store, and saw an old friend. And all you guys in Pearson Pickerel, you all know him. I'm not gonna say his name though. But he come up to the counter. He's paying for his gas and what have you. And I look over at him. I said, "Hey," and I said, "Hey, what's the first thing you think of when someone mentions UFOs or aliens?" And he was looking at me, and he turns his head, and he looks down. He looks down at his money, and he's counting. He just kind of slows down for a second, and he lifts his head back up, and he goes, "You know what? I haven't thought about this in a very long time." I'm like, "Oh yeah?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, you know where Camp Makajuan is, East Camp." I said, yeah, I know where it is." Well, he goes, "Well, you know where I grew up at, you know, almost right next to it." And I said, "Yeah, I know where you grew up." And he said, "Well, there was a UFO that crashed there." I said, "Really?" And so now, you know, now he's got my attention. He said, "Yeah, he was right where they built that pavilion on East Camp is where it crashed." But anyway, I was with my dad, and I was about 12 years old. He said, and they heard a really loud crash, a boom, and they could hear about where it was. So everyone in the surrounding that lived around the camp went there to investigate it, and what they found was a crashed UFO. But anyway, he says everyone showed up there, and they all took pictures of it, and within an hour, like Men in Black or something like that showed up, and FBI or something. And then he says they showed up there, and they gathered everyone together, and they made them sign a non-disclosure agreement that they couldn't talk about it or anything. They confiscated everyone's cameras, except for a couple that got loose. But anyway, I have to be kind of vague, so I'm thinking here, because I can't give you all the details. But gosh damn it. But he let's see, but they got all the cameras, and then the very next morning, military equipment came in, but it had with no insignia on it, and and he's seen all this, and they got it out of the ground, whatever, and they hauled it off, covered up and hauled it off. And the very next day in the Antigo newspaper, they put in there that there was a weather balloon that crashed out in Pearson. So anyway, he gets done telling me that story, and I was like, cool, it's like, wow, I didn't even know that, and I kind of remembered something about it. And I remember back in the early mid 70s, I remember hearing that the Army was back out there for a whole summer, and that's when they built the pavilion. So I'm kind of guessing, thinking that maybe they went out there because they were trying to locate another part or piece or something, because I guess they were there for 3 months, the whole summer, and they took over the camp. But anyway, that's just me. But anyway, a few weeks later, I run into him again at the same store. And he looks over and he goes, hey, he goes, I got to thinking about that, and I remembered something else about it. He goes, about 10 years later, I was hauling potatoes up in Michigan to some of the farms, and I got up there too late and I couldn't get unloaded. And so I went and got a motel room, he says, and there was a little bar in there. So, he got settled in, and he went down to the bar to have a few beers, and there was only one other guy in there. So naturally they ended up talking, and they were just hoot and holler, talking about whatever and making jokes and things, and hour or so later, he asked him where he was from, and he said Pearson. And then the guy he goes, oh, I know where Pearson. He's like, really? How do you know where Pearson is? He goes, well, did you ever hear about that UFO that crashed there? He's like, yeah, I lived right next, I was there, I seen it. He goes, well, I was one of the soldiers. And he's like, oh, really? So they talked just a little bit about that, but our friend in Pearson, he had a question for him. He said, he asked this soldier, he said, I've always wondered since then, what is it that you can tell me about UFOs and aliens? And he said that soldier looked back at him and had a real serious face on his face, and he asked him, do you enjoy your life? Are you happy? And he says, he replied, yes, I'm pretty happy. Things are going good. He goes, well, just keep it that way. You don't, just enjoy your life. You don't want to know anything about UFOs and aliens. So that conversation ended, and they went back to just talking and having drinks. The soldier got pretty drunk, and he needed a ride home. So my friend said to him that he it's hard to not use his name. He said, he goes, well, I'll give you a ride home. I've only had a few drinks. I ain't that, I'm not drunk or anything. And he said, sure. So he was thinking to himself, well, on our way, I'm going to ask him over that one more time what he can tell me about UFOs and aliens. So anyway, they jumped in the truck, and they got halfway to his house, and they're talking about whatever, and he asked him again, the soldier. He asked the soldier again, if there's, hey, what can you tell me about UFOs and aliens? And he said that soldier just kind of sobered right up, straightened right out, and he looked at him, and he said, I'll tell you one thing. Don't ask me anything else. Aliens that have their home planets and their own and have their own galaxies, them you don't have to worry about. It's the ones in space. Those are the ones you have to worry about. And and then he proceeded and got him home and dropped him off. But pretty interesting story. you know, I mean, because I've had so much stuff happen in my life, everywhere I go, I talk to people, and I ask, you know, and I have people that'll pull me aside away from everybody else. And there's quite a few people out there. It's not everyone. There's people out there that don't have a story, but everyone has at least one story. They tell me that they never talk about it because they don't want to be humiliated. They don't want to be looked down on or like they're crazy or something. And because they were hearing me talk, they wanted to tell me what was, you know, their story, and it was awesome. So I mean, I've heard a lot of things from a lot of people. So the point I'm getting at is, hey man, I've had a lot of contact, and I have a hell of a story. I've never heard anybody quite like mine, but I'll get it out here pretty soon. It's not going to be everything, but I'll talk about it, I'll explain it, and I'll do the best I can, because being on the camera, and it's just, for me, this stuff's really personal, and when I'm with someone, I get rolling a lot better. Talking to a camera, I get a little choppy like this, but you get my point. There's a couple other things I wanted to say, but I can't think of them right now. I got this dog over here. Well, that's about it, but that's the story. That's the UFO that crashed in Pearson, Wisconsin, 1969, 1970, somewhere in there. But there's a lot of other stories. Once I get going with some videos, I'm sure I'll start throwing some other stories in there that I've heard from people, and because there's a lot to talk about. There's no way I'm going to be able to hit everything, because it's been 12 years. 12 years. But I mean, everybody, moral of the story, wake the fuck up. We're all being lied to about everything. Just, man, a lot of people have started catching on, but we need everyone to catch on, or almost everyone. So, but anyway, that's the UFO crash in Pearson story. Till next month.